Welcome back, and joining us on the show now is Mayur Karmarkar. He's Managing Director, International Copper Association. Mayur, hi, thank you so much for joining us. And the month of April has been a stellar one, as we've seen rally in almost all metals there. I'll talk about copper with you, where we've seen prices. It's still trading at a multi-year highs as the world moves towards EVs and energy transition, and the expectation that copper will continue to be in favor in the next couple of years or even more.
Thanks, Manisha. When you look at the global landscape where we are, we are 17% of the world population. Our GDP percentage to the global population, GDP is only 9%, whereas copper demand is very low, which is 5% of the global copper demand. Now, when you look at the, Vision 2047, the Amrit Kal, where, the target GDP of $20,000 per capita, or over $34 trillion GDP. And you really see the policy reforms on the infrastructure, urbanization, then industrialization, like Make in India. And then together with that, we have the net zero goal of 2070. We foresee the huge demand for the copper coming up for the India. The demand will come from all the sectors like building construction, electricity or the clean energy transition, the transportation, electric vehicle, and electronics, telecommunication, even the agriculture. So
it's an exhaustive list, Mayur, but are you putting out any numbers on what kind of demand could India see going forward?
Yeah, so if we really see our current demand is 1.5 million ton, which is less than per capita of the copper demand, less than 1 kg. We expect that going forward at least 3 to 4 times of the current demand for 2047. So it will be around 4.5 million ton plus. So this is the big number, but it's still much smaller compared to other countries like China, where China is around 13 million ton now.
It sure is. Mayur, when you talked about India and you talk about Make in India, so what is it that you see within India when it comes to secondary smelting, refining of copper capacity within the country?
That's a good question. Out of total demand, today we serve only 37% by primary smelting refining, which is much smaller. The global is more than 70%. And that has largely happened due to the closure of the Sterlite plant for a long time now. We have got almost if you really see the import, we are largely import dependent in the copper semis because we don't have the refining capacity as of now. Hopefully, Adani will solve this problem. But then we also depend on scrap. Our total scrap intake is around 17% for the copper, 24% total for copper, which includes 17% coming from the domestic scrap and 7% from the imported scrap. Plus, we have 14% of the total demand made through copper alloy scrap coming into the country. So scrap is the important resource as of now. As the demand increases, the ability of scrap generation overall is much lesser because today's scrap is whatever the copper was used 30 years ago. So we can't have the ample availability of the scrap. But in terms of scrap refining, we have hardly any capacity. Out of total demand, only less than 1% or 2% is the scrap refined in a proper condition, proper way. Most of the scrap gets remade.
All right. Mayur, I have one final quick question. And when you talk about the lack of capacities that India has, so what kind of technology, and what kind of investments will India need to ensure or achieve those kind of capacities?
So one is the investment. So first is that capacity. One is the smelting refining. If our demand has to grow, has to support the manufacturing overall, and the investment will be required in smelting and refining capacity. Today we are around 700,000 ton. Adani is 1 million ton over the next 4 years is going to create some breather. But going forward, we will need at least 500,000 ton of smelting and refining capacity every 5 years. And in terms of scrap, yes, we need to have secondary refining in the country. Currently, you see a lot of countries are investing into secondary refining, largely to support their own resource efficiency objective and circularity objective. So we will require, the investments at least in a few hundred crores for supporting the invest for overall processing of primary as well as secondary material in the country.
Point taken. So those are big numbers that really India needs to look at in sense of investment when it comes to copper refining capacities there. Mayur, thank you so much for taking time out and sharing all of those very important numbers with our viewers today. But with that, it's a wrap on Halftime Report. Business Lunch will take all the action forward.